Good morning everyone, my name is Michelle. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video. It is Saturday morning, the 17th of May. And in this video, we're continuing the coverage of disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, aged 6 and 4 respectively, who were reported missing around 10 AM on May the 2nd from their home in Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia, Canada. Over the last few hours, there's been a flurry of new news reports. Both the mainstream media and also social media are abuzz with the new information that was released by the RCMP yesterday. There is going to be a new search over this weekend. So lots of speculation on why the searchers are back. Let's talk about it. If you remember, there was a huge search, 160 ground searchers. They had aircraft, helicopters, drones, dogs, in a valiant attempt to find Lilly and Jack in the dense woodland surrounding their home alive. That was their aim. That was the mission. Unfortunately, they didn't find Lilly and Jack. And on May 7th, there was a press conference to say that they were scaling back. Doesn't mean to say they were stopping, but they were moving on to other investigative areas. The Major Crimes Unit is involved in this case. Apparently, in Canada, Major Crimes Unit is involved in all missing child cases. So it was Saturday, just a day after they disappeared, Saturday, May 3rd. That the Major Crimes Unit got involved. And they said it's suspicious. They denote all missing child cases where a child isn't found within the first few hours suspicious. That's just what they do. So Lilly and Jack's case isn't especially unusual as far as I understand the processes in Canada. Okay, this is the update. Searchers will be back in the area tomorrow, and this is from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Nova Scotia. Pictou County missing persons investigation continues with renewed ground and air search efforts. May 16th, 2025, Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia. Ground and air search efforts are planned for tomorrow, May 17th, as the missing persons investigation into the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan continues. Searchers from Ground Search and Rescue Teams, the Civil Air Search Rescue Association and the RCMP will focus on specific areas around Gaylord Road in an effort to locate Lilly and Jack and advance the investigation. This search follows a large-scale air and ground search of 5.5 square kilometres, which is 3.4 square miles, and that area, if it was done in a perfect circle, would have a radius of a shade over a mile. But they concentrated more to the west. I think that was because they had a potential lead in that area around the gas pipe. I think that's why they concentrated in that area, at least for a period of time. Potential footprint. Child's boot print was found. So 5.5 square kilometres or 3.4 square miles of heavily wooded rural terrain in the Gaylord Road area. That began on May 2nd. On May 7th, the search scaled back in favour of more specific searches. And it didn't stop, they just focused on certain areas, as well as the desk investigation. They've done 35 formal interviews with the family, people closest to Lilly and Jack, community members. We don't know whether they did that because there were potential suspects that they needed to interview, but that's what was done. That was the RCMP update from the other day, which I talked about. On May 8th and 9th, the RCMP's underwater recovery team scoured bodies of water around Lansdowne Station. ERT's two-day operation did not uncover evidence. So I'd like to know how deep Lansdowne Lake is. Now there's various small ponds and what looks like marshy areas, which may have been a little bit deeper than normal because of the heavy rain. But I'd like to know how deep Lansdowne Lake is, because it's notoriously difficult to find people in water. We continue to ask that the public avoid the search area to allow trained searchers to do their work. So they don't want volunteers, they don't want people to turn up. They have the resources that they're going to use to focus this targeted search on specific areas around Gairloch Road. So this update led to a lot of speculation on social media, and the Facebook group that I've been following was full of speculation yesterday. Probably still is, I haven't checked this morning. I'm recording this really early, like 7 o'clock in the morning here in the UK. Some people are thinking, well, someone must have confessed. Someone must have confessed, and they are going to find Lilly and Jack. That Lilly and Jack will be found today because somebody's confessed. Other people have said, well, no, it's just a continuation. They did say that there were specific areas that they wanted to recheck, and that's possibly what they're doing. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, if somebody had confessed, I don't think they'd have a bunch of volunteer search and rescue organisation traipsing over the land. However careful they were, however well trained they were, I think if someone had confessed and had given a location where Lilly and Jack would be found, I think it would be done very quietly. It would be scenes of crime experts. It would have been just the RCMP. That's just my opinion. I think they're doing what they said they were going to do, which is go back and search specific areas. Really, really easy to miss people in heavily wooded areas. It's not easy to see from up above. And you can see just how dense some of this woodland is from the overhead shots. So it would be difficult to hone in on the ground in some areas in that location. So I think the places where they couldn't see, the places where they were not sure about in the first search, I think they're going back. And it's not unusual to do this. If you followed the Sebastian Rogers case, the missing, he's 16 now, but he was 15 when he disappeared, young man from Hendersonville in Tennessee who disappeared on the 26th of February 2024. They did exactly the same thing. The TBI, the FBI, local searchers, they combed the area for like a few days and then they scaled it back. But they came back. They came back a week or two later, don't remember the exact timeline, but they came back and researched a bunch of areas. They do this quite a lot. So I don't think this is unusual. I don't think someone's confessed. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they do find Lilly and Jack today. They need to come home. They absolutely need to come home. I want to share this news piece as well from the Facebook group. Somebody said that they'd seen, so one of the locals had driven by, and they'd seen a CBS van at the end of the driveway talking to Daniel. So I was expecting that there was going to be a new interview with Daniel on CBS, but it appears not to have happened, and Daniel has not commented. Daniel, of course, is Lilly and Jack's stepdad. He has declined an interview. You might say, well, maybe it's because he's under a lot of suspicion and he just doesn't want to talk about it. Maybe he failed a polygraph. There's all these speculations out there. Maybe he failed a polygraph and he doesn't want to talk to the media now. Or maybe he's just realised that if he talks to the media, social media are going to analyse every single mannerism, every single word. Look, Daniel, he's been his own worst enemy, honestly, because he has said stuff that's inconsistent. You just look back at my past videos where I've talked about Daniel, and it doesn't mean he's guilty, but what Cindy Murray, the maternal grandmother, has said, that Malia Brooks Murray, who is the children's mother, has been told not to talk to the media because the attention you receive generally isn't favourable. So I don't know. Right, we're going to read this. Experts point to anomalies in unprecedented case of missing Nova Scotia children. I don't think this is absolutely unprecedented. However, it is very unusual for two young siblings to go missing together. 2 weeks after two young siblings vanished without a trace in rural Nova Scotia, experts are pointing to anomalies in what they say is an unprecedented case that deviates from a typical missing children investigation. Doesn't mean to say it's a crime. It is unusual though, and there are red flags. There are. I've had a bad feeling about this from the jump. So I'm with these experts that there is something else about this case. I think there's something else about this case we don't know, and that's why some things just don't make sense. That's what I think. Lilly Sullivan, 6, and brother Jack Sullivan, 4, have been missing since May 2nd, as we know. That's when police received a 911 call reporting that they had wandered away from their home in Lansdowne Station, a sparsely populated area about 140 kilometres northeast of Halifax. That's Halifax, Canada, not Halifax, England. Whenever I see Halifax, you've got Halifax in West Yorkshire. Sidebar, one of my great-great-granddads was a Yorkshireman. Although I'm a Red Rose through and through, one of my great-great-granddads was from Halifax in West Yorkshire. He was a policeman. Okay, right. Nova Scotia RCMP then launched a search that included ground search and rescue officials, dog teams, drones and helicopters. And after 6 days of scouring the heavy wooded areas surrounding the home, there was no sign of the children and the search was called off. Police have said they do not believe the children were abducted, but have not ruled out that the case is suspicious. Again, that's something that they do in missing child's cases, so not unusual in itself for Canada. Michelle Genis, an associate professor in the Criminal Justice Department of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, said the facts of the case and apparent lack of evidence makes it an anomaly. It's unusual, I agree. It doesn't meet a lot of the normal criteria for what we would see for these types of cases, said Genis, whose research areas include missing persons and juvenile justice. Usually, there is evidence in some way that could suggest something nefarious has happened. It mirrors those adult missing persons cases where we call it quiet disappearance. There's no evidence. Potential footprint. Is that evidence? We don't know whether that's Lilly and Jack. There was no scent. A dog was called to the area and they didn't follow a track there. Is it an old boot print from either Lilly or Jack? Is that an area where locals walk? Is that an area where Lilly and Jack have walked? Perhaps with Daniel. Because we know Daniel, makes cabins and forts and things for him in the woods. And this gas pipe is not too far away. It's 0.7 miles as the crow flies from their house. Just sometimes there's absolutely no evidence. Somebody just walks away and they're just gone. In a rural area like this where there's not a lot of surveillance cameras, it's easy to walk away or be taken or be hidden. All of these things are possible. However, the RCMP say they do not think the children were abducted. They've maintained that from the outset, whether they've got information that we don't have or there's just a lack of evidence that points them in that direction. I don't know. A few details stand out to Genis as unusual, including the children's absence from school that week. The children's stepfather, Daniel Martel, told CBC that the children were not in school on Thursday and Friday, the morning of the disappearance, due to illness. Lilly had a cough. They were also not at school on Wednesday due to a professional development day. Oh, we have them in the UK. Teacher training days. Well, yeah. Is it just an unfortunate coincidence or is there a reason for that? Was that an excuse? We don't know. It could be just incredibly bad timing as they had 48 hours unaccounted for before the disappearance. It's more than 48 hours because the last time we know they were seen by somebody outside of the family was by the bus driver, Mr. Ward, who dropped them off from the school bus. So you've got Tuesday into Wednesday, Wednesday into Thursday, Thursday into Friday. You've got 3 days there. Now, maybe the RCMP know that the children were seen by other people in that time period. Maybe they've got witness accounts. They're very, very tight-lipped. I don't think we're going to get much more information from the RCMP. It stands out in my head, said Genis, and this is Michelle Genis from the University of Louisiana. Police will not say if anyone else had contact or saw the children in the days leading up to the day they went missing. Genis said she believes police should be considering whether a person played a part. We all think the same. There's something. In a stereotypical kidnapping by a stranger, the offender doesn't usually target a specific child or children. They create a plan and whoever is in the environment at the time falls victim. It doesn't seem that this would be the case here because what we know is that they were in their backyard in a rural community, so it's not like they were walking to school or to a gas station or something where it could be an easy snatch situation. I agree with that. I do. I think the chances of abduction in that area are really, really slim by a stranger. Could they be abducted by someone they know? Yes. But how would that person know that Lily and Jack were going to be in the backyard that particular day, that particular time? If you want to go down that road, you have to consider the possibility that it's a planned abduction. And maybe it happened before Friday morning. Look, I just don't feel that Lily and Jack were abducted. I think either a wander away scenario or we've got a foul play scenario by somebody closely connected to the children. Those are the two theories that by far the most likely. And I flip between wandering away versus foul play, inconsistencies, suspicious details that cannot be ignored. I think I've all but discounted abduction. Nova Scotia RCMP said on Tuesday they were following up on more than 180 tips from members of the public and exploring all avenues in the investigation. The Mounties said 35 people were identified for formal interviews, including community members and those closest to the children. So look how dense that is. Really, really easy to miss somebody. Michael Arntfield, a criminologist at Western University in London, Ontario, not London, England, called the case unprecedented, saying it's highly unlikely for two siblings who live together to vanish when a parent is not involved. That's true. It does happen occasionally, very rarely. I'll give you the Beaumont children from Australia as the obvious. They were abducted by a stranger, like there's witnesses that saw them with a man, and that was 3 siblings abducted from the beach. And there's no evidence of that. If that had been the case, I think we would have heard about that very quickly, he said. If they'd found evidence of foul play in the home, they wouldn't be out there searching again today. I just don't know. Arntfield said he thinks police could be more forthcoming with information about the case, given the public is being solicited for information. He said following up on 180 tips requires a great deal of resources. Police can't be everywhere, so they rely, in cases like this, on the eyes and ears of the public. And that needs to be a two-way street in terms of information. Otherwise, they're just going to get tips that really just bog down the investigation and aren't necessarily of any substantive value. I agree with that. But they are being incredibly tight-lipped. He also said police should have said publicly in the early days of the search whether the case was considered suspicious. Well, they did. On May 7th, they did. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that there is some active lead being worked on and they don't want to upset the equilibrium that they're in, says Arntfield. Okay, I'll go with that. But based on appearances, this went in the wrong direction early on, and key momentum and leads were lost when they were out in the fields looking for kids that maybe were never there. Okay. You see, I go there. Maybe they're just following the wrong line of inquiry. But we don't know what we don't know. And this guy, this criminologist, he's not involved in the investigation. He only has the information we have. So, there's that. RCMP said Friday that all missing persons cases are treated as suspicious until our investigation leads us to determine otherwise. In an email Friday evening, Martel said he was told by police not to disclose updates during the investigation. Okay, there you go. He's been told by police not to update, according to him, of course. The children's maternal grandmother, Cindy Merritt, said police have advised the family against speaking to the media. Nova Scotia RCMP declined an interview request and would not answer specific questions about the case. In a statement, spokesperson Corporal Carlick McCann said police have spoken to the majority of people identified as potentially having information to support the investigation, and other interviews are scheduled to take place in the coming days and weeks. Interesting. Officers involved are also continuing to follow up on new tips that come in, adding that to ensure the integrity of the investigation, no further details will be released. McCann declined to provide more information about why police believe the children were not abducted. On Friday, Kevin McLean of Colchester Ground Search and Rescue said searchers will be back in the woods on Saturday and Sunday with volunteers from multiple search and rescue teams. In a news release Friday evening, RCMP said the search will focus on specific areas around Gairloch Road. The Sullivan home is on this road. So maybe they think Lily and Jack are within that mile radius. Maybe they think they've just been missed. Maybe they've exhausted the leads that could lead them to foul play. So they've reverted to these kids wandered away and they've just been missed, which could easily be the case. There's just something. I got a really bad feeling, but I really, really hope that they find them. They need to be found as soon as possible. They've been out there, if they are out there and they're deceased, they've been out there 2 weeks. They need to be found. Not just to lay them to rest in a dignified manner, but while there's enough time to be able to determine a cause and manner of death. That's my view. I hope they find them today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys. Cassie, this way. Good girl. Okay, good girl.